Hi everyone. Today the U.S. money supply is about $18 trillion, and as you can see, it's still growing at a very fast rate. Almost $100,000 of every second. It seems like. It looks like we might have another round of stimulus spending. They were talking about extending unemployment by $300 a week for until they were actually moving some of that money from what was supposed to be FEMA spending into the unemployment situation. Well, I just noticed that we crossed an important threshold. So 18 trillion money supply. Look at how much silver there is in reserve around the world. 19 billion and dwindling very fast, right? If you look carefully at the numbers, we are consuming silver at about 10 to 20 times the rate that we are consuming gold. If you were to extrapolate some of these numbers, I joked in another video the idea of counting to 1 billion, right? The rate that this is dwindling, 19 billion, it's dwindling by 10 or 20 billion every second. This is like trying to count to 1 billion, right? It doesn't take that many years, right? If you really were dedicated to counting to 1 billion, you could do that in a lifetime, right? You can let your children continue from 1 billion and go onward, right? So if you're leaving silver to your children, you might see this number approach 0 at some point, right? Actually, part of the problem, the reason that number is dwindling a lot faster than it really should, is precisely because silver is so undervalued, right? Nobody recycles it, right? In your average computer, you probably have several grams of silver. Last time I checked, our landfills are filled with all sorts of electronic devices because of how undervalued silver is, right? It really should be closer to $1,000 an ounce if we were to actually use silver as a currency, like how it was. I learned that in quite a number of languages. The word for silver is the same thing as the word for money, right? Gold is way too valuable to be your average person's money, right? We got 18 trillion in money supply, only 1.8 billion, so about $10,000 for every ounce of gold. That actually makes sense, right? The US dollar is way overvalued, right? In most parts of the world, a lot of people live on about $2 a day, right? Which is about, at current prices, about 1/10 of an ounce of silver. If silver were $1,000 an ounce, that would be about $100 a day that people are living on, which would make a lot more sense to a country like the United States, right? Most people in the United States have about $100 a day to live on, right? So I don't think it's that so many people are living in poverty. I think it's that the dollar is very overvalued, right? In 1937, the very first minimum wage was 25 cents an hour. At the time, 25 cents was literally a quarter made of 90% silver, right? Which is about 0.3 ounces of, 0.2 or so ounces of silver, which was way more progressive, right? That's why there was so much opposition to the minimum wage, right? So everywhere you look, you could see that the dollar is way overvalued relative to any of these real currencies on this page, right? Gold, silver, platinum, palladium. There's actually more palladium than platinum, right? So that's why I think platinum is such a good buy right now at a fraction of the price of palladium. Lithium is an antidepressant, right? I take lithium orotate. Definitely a lot more useful than pieces of paper, which bring a lot of sadness to a lot of people, right? Nickel is one of the rarer base metals. If you like nickel, I recommend Canadian nickels made before 1981. Aluminum used to be a precious metal, right? In Napoleon's time, it was worth about 5 times what gold is worth. But it's probably never going to go back to that. But I expect if energy becomes hard to come by, right? Aluminum is literally a form of energy, right? It takes a lot of energy to turn the aluminum oxide we find in the ground to aluminum, right? which is part of the reason why we recycle aluminum. Actually, the main reason we recycle aluminum cans is not because we're going to run out of the element aluminum, right? It's the fact that we're going to run out of aluminum in its unoxidized state, right? Because it takes energy to get there, right? Anyways, every ounce of silver you see, there's $1,000 in somebody's bank account to match that ounce of silver. Thanks for watching.